Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I am going to film a very special video. I feel like I say this every time, but all my videos are special to me. Anyways, we're in Pride Month right now, and I wanted to film a video with books that have bisexual / pan / omni / queer rep. And as somebody who's pan myself, I really like to read / explore books that have characters who are like me. And I made a list of all the books that I have read that have this kind of rep, and a list of books that I want to read that have this kind of rep. So I'm going to start off with the books that I have read that I would recommend, because there's also some books that I wouldn't recommend that I didn't enjoy. But all the books that I'm going to recommend here are books that I read and did enjoy. So without further ado, let's get into the first book, which is also my favorite book of all time. And that book is, if you know my taste and if you know what my favorite book is, it's none other than A Little Life by Hanya. So there are multiple characters in this book that are lgbtqia+, but there's one character who starts off as straight, or so we think, and then halfway through the book we discover that this character is actually bi, or, well, they're not labels technically, but from the events that happen in the book, you can basically tell that this person is bi or pan, or, somewhere in that spectrum. And this is a lovely character. It's one of my favorite characters in this book, and the relationship that this character has with one of the other characters in the book, which I also really love, is one of the purest, most wonderful things that I've ever seen in literature, and that is why this is one of my favorite books of all time. And I highly, highly recommend it, but also please check the trigger warnings, because this book is very sad and very triggering. So, moving on. The next book I have to recommend is one of the books that I just finished, actually. I finished it 2 days ago. And that book was Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney. I had read another book by Sally Rooney before, that was Normal People, but I had DNF'd it and I didn't like it at all. But that was back in 2020, and I was a different person back then. I had not started university. It was right at the beginning of quarantine, so maybe I was not in the right headspace to read that book. So I think I'm going to give it another chance. And I actually gave Sally Rooney as an author another chance this month by reading Conversation with Friends, and I loved it so much. So the character who's bi in this book is Frances, who's also the main character. And she's a very cold and unlikable main character who makes very questionable decisions, and she acts very awkwardly towards people, and she thinks in a very weird way, but that's also very relatable for a lot of people who are of our generation. It was the kind of book that starts off as very okay, like, okay, I like this, but I'm not in love. But the more you get into it, the more you start to appreciate all the lines and all the quotes and the beautiful writing, and you just can't stop thinking about it, and it makes you feel a lot of different emotions. Like, I would pick it up and I would love it, and I would pick it up again and be like, wait, no, I don't like this book. And because of this range of emotions that I would feel, I realized this is a great book, and that is why I gave it 5 stars, and it's one of my favorite books of the year. So, highly recommend it. Okay, the next book that I'm going to recommend is a book that I read last year for the first time. And I actually liked it. I actually gave it 5 stars because I give this author 5 stars all the time. But I read it again this year, and I made a video all about it. And now it became one of my favorite books of all time. And that book is Radio Silence by Alice Oseman. And again, the main character in this book is also called Frances, and she's also bisexual, which is very funny. In comparison to Frances from Conversation with Friends, she was 21. Frances in this book is 17/18, and she is in 6th form and is applying to Cambridge, which is a very prestigious school in the UK. And it's not only about her sexuality, it's mostly about friendship, and it's a coming-of-age story, and it's about academia and the pressures that come with it. But as a side bonus, we also have that the main character is bi, and that there is a sort of plot line that comes with it. So it's not just one of those things that she's mention that she's bi in like one page and then that never gets mentioned again. It is part of the story, but only a little bit, only a fraction, so it doesn't become the whole story. Read this book if you're in school and if you're struggling with school. It will make you feel so much better, because I read it during midterms when I was having a very hard time with classes. This book made me feel so much better. And yeah. Next, another Alice Oseman book that has taken the world by storm right now is Heartstopper. And the character who's bi in this book is Nick Nelson, that has become like kind of a fan favorite right now. So people might know of this series from the show that just came out, and I actually watched it the day it came out, or at least not the whole thing, but like I started watching it the day it came out. I remember it was a very long day, and at the end of the day, it was like 11 p.m., and I was like, okay, go to Netflix, start Heartstopper, because you've waited for this for so long. So, Heartstopper is the story of Nick and Charlie who meet in school and slowly fall in love. But Charlie already established that he's gay, and he knows he likes boys, but Nick doesn't know that yet. And it's also a story of him discovering his sexuality. And I also love that this book does feature bi-rep, because in a lot of coming-of-age stories like this, it's that the character is straight and realizes that they're gay, actually. But here, it's so refreshing to see a person who thought they were straight and thought that they liked girls and realized that they liked boys too, not only boys. So basically bisexual, liking both boys and girls, because we can have that. You don't have to be just gay or just straight. Next on the list, we have I Kissed Shara Wheeler by Casey McQuiston. Casey McQuiston will be mentioned later on the to be read books with bi-rep, but here we have only this one. So this is a new release that just came out, and I picked it up mainly because of the cover, to be honest, because it's so beautiful. And this book follows the story of Chloe Green, who's the main character, and she is bi, and she is a senior in high school, and she has a rival at school, and that rival is Shara Wheeler. But one day Shara Wheeler disappears, and she leaves notes to 3 different people, including Chloe Green, on how to find her. And the book is called I Kissed Shara Wheeler because before she leaves, she kisses these 3 people. And it's a major shocker because everyone thought that she was straight, and because she currently has a boyfriend. And we'll see if she actually is straight or maybe she's something else. This was such a fun book. It's one of those YA books that are a lot of fun, but also have a very good commentary background on not just bisexuality, but also gender identities. And I overall really, really enjoyed it, and I will read more by Casey McQuiston soon. So, next, we have a classic. This is one of those books that, again, gets put in the box of gay books, but in reality, both characters who are in a relationship are bisexual men, but that sometimes gets brushed off. And again, bi erasure is a thing. Biphobia is a thing. People don't like to accept that bi people are bi, and they try to put them in the wrong box and place the wrong label. And without further ado, that book is Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. First of all, Giovanni's Room has incredible, immaculate, exquisite writing. I can't wait to read more by James Baldwin in the future. I actually have a hold on the library app to read If Beale Street Could Talk, and I'm very excited about that. But this one was so good. It wasn't like my favorite because I'm not a bi man, so I can't really relate to that experience, but it was still very, very good. I mean, the relationship itself is not good. It's actually very destructive, but we don't only need happy stories and like clean stories. We also want to see the messiness of relationships and how they can go wrong. And I love that this book did feature that. It was of its time, of course, and we do need, now that we're in present day, more happy stories, and we are getting them. But for its time, it was very revolutionary, and I also really want to read more classics of bi representation because they're very important. By the way, it takes place in Paris, and it's beautiful. Speaking of books that get mislabeled sometimes, another book is Call Me By Your Name by Andre Asman. Now, I personally don't recommend this as much as I recommend all the other books in this list because of the age gap. Because one character is 17 and one character is 24, and that's a very big age gap. That's 7 years, and one of the characters is basically a minor. However, the book itself is very good. The ending is very good. To be honest, the journey is not as enjoyable, but the ending shatters you. The ending is beautiful, and the ending is the only reason I might consider one day reading the sequel. And it's written masterfully. This book takes place in Italy in the 80s, and the movie is also great. And again, I haven't finished the movie, and I need to finish the movie. I watched it in 2018, and I only got halfway through, and I feel guilty. Call Me By Your Name is a bisexual book. It's not a gay book because both characters are bi. And that's all I need to know. Next, my favorite book of last year, which I only now realize that the author is bi. That book is In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. So this book is a memoir, but written in a very interesting format, using tropes of literature and storytelling. And it is absolutely wonderful. The audiobook is narrated by the author herself. And I didn't know the author was bi. I thought she was a lesbian, and therefore I was not going to include it. But then I did some research on the internet, and she's actually bisexual, which is great because I get to include it here. And it is very dark. It is about the author's relationship with another woman. It is very sad, and it's sadder because it is a true story, which makes it even more devastating. But I highly recommend it because the author really just flexed her master's in creative writing in this book, and I can't wait to read more. I hope she comes out with a novel because I would love to read her fiction. This book is also a book I read this year. It has very mild bi rep. It's the kind of bi rep where you have a main character who has always been in a relationship with a man and has never explored her sexuality, but she knows that deep down she is bi. And in this book, we get some fragments of her experiences with women and how she wants to go further, but she can't because she's tied to a man. And that book is Out of Love by Hazel Hayes. Now, how do I know Hazel Hayes? Great question. So I'm a big fan of Dodie, another bi icon. She is a ukulele player, singer, songwriter. She had her debut album come out last year, and she had a music video for her song I Kissed Someone It Wasn't You. And that music video was directed by Hazel Hayes, which is one of Dodie's friends, and she's also into short films and stuff like that. And she wrote her first novel called Out of Love. And when I saw that live show that she was doing with Dodie and she mentioned it, I was like, I would love to check it out because this person seems very intelligent and love to see their fiction. And I was pleasantly surprised. It was so good. And I usually don't read books about relationships because it's not something that interests me a lot. When I hear that a book is focused on the romance or the relationship, I'm like, skip, I don't care about that. I care about other topics. But this book was so good and it kept me at the edge of my seat the entire time. And it's told in a very interesting format where it's told backwards. So it's told from the end of the relationship to the beginning. And anyway, the main character of that book, who's unnamed, is bi. And we do get to see like little pieces of that. But unfortunately, she is not allowed to explore it. And I know a lot of people look for bi rep in books where they're actually in a queer relationship, but I know that it's also important to validate people who are bi but are in straight passing relationships. That is also valid. You can be bi and still be in a relationship with somebody who's the opposite gender as you. And we support that. Next is another book that I read back in 2020 that I absolutely loved, and that's The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. So this is not contemporary fiction. This is actual fantasy. So The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue is about a girl who's called Addie, and she makes a deal with the devil that she will live forever, but everybody she meets will forget her. And she lives many, many years like this, and one day, in the present day, she finally meets someone who does remember her. And that's how the story begins, my friends. It is so good. I read a lot of V.E. Schwab books, but I truly, truly feel that this is her masterpiece. I highly recommend it if you're looking for bi-rep in a fantasy setting or fantasy story. And speaking of fantasy, the next one is a sci-fi story, and that is the Carl's duology. So the absolutely or unabsolutely remarkable thing and the beautifully foolish endeavor. Both of these books are very, very good. In my opinion, the second book is better than the first one, but I know a lot of people disagree on that. Doesn't matter. Both books are great. I really like this duology. It's about a girl called April May, yes, like the months, and she discovers a statue that was not there before, and she then realizes that these statues are not just in one place, but they're all over the world. But before she knows that, she makes a YouTube video about it, and she's the first person to report on them. Therefore, she becomes super mega famous overnight, and then that's how the story begins. And then you get to see what even are these weird statues. It's so good. So good. And the last book on the list of the books I have read is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. This is a book I do like, but not as much as people on the internet do. I feel like some people are absolutely in love with this book, and unfortunately that did not happen with me. I did like it though. I thought it was a very good book, and I thought that the bi representation was very well crafted, and not something that was just for the sake of having bi rep. Like, this was actually part of the story, and it's a very important part. So the main character, Evelyn, is bi, and she is in love with a woman, and that is actually the biggest or truest love in her life. However, people don't know that because she has to hide her bisexuality from the public eye, because she's also super famous because she's a movie star. And I really enjoyed this book, but not as much as other people, but that's fine. And so we finished with the books I have read. Now the books I haven't read, I will go quickly because I don't know much about them, but I've heard wonderful things for all of them. So first, Tin Man by Sarah Whitman. Don't know much about it, to be honest. I just know it's great. My Policeman. This book is adapted and will come out in November, I think, and Harry Styles plays the character, which is so exciting. And again, I don't know much about it. I think it's set in Italy or France, and it has a bi man. Both of these two books, by the way, have a bi man as a main character. Next, Paul Takes the Form of a Mortal Girl. This does not only have bi rep, I think, but also gender fluid rep. But the gender fluidity is actually like a real thing that happens in this book. So it's kind of speculative, which I would love to see. And the reason why I haven't read this book yet is because I don't find it in my library, and it's not anywhere sold, and I might have to order it online. But I really want to read this book. Now, speaking of Case McKiston, I have one last stop here with me, and I also want to read Red, White, and Royal Blue. So I'm not going to spend much time describing these books because they are super popular. Everybody knows about them. This I did start reading actually months ago in the beginning of the year, but the audiobook was not my favorite. The narrator was too quirky. I hated her so much. She tried to make it too quirky, and I think I will read it with my eyeballs instead, because I actually found this in a Pretty Little Library, and it's in very good condition. And also I will read Red, White, and Royal Blue because, again, it's being adapted, and we'd love to read the book before we watch the movie, right? Next, I have another book that is fantasy. I actually have 2 fantasy books that I have here that I haven't read yet, but I would love to do that soon. First one is Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. This is one of the most popular fantasy books ever. It has won the Hugo Award, and it's written by a Black woman author, which is also fantastic. We need to support more Black women authors. And it's also a book that comments a lot on climate change. And I didn't know it had BIREP, but when I was going through the lists on Google, this was part of it so many times, like in different lists. So I thought, okay, it has to be legit, because if it's in one list, I'm like, okay, but are you credible though? Very excited, very, very excited. And the second book that is fantasy, dark academia fantasy, is, can you guess it? The Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake. Now this book, oh my god, I watched a TikTok about this book all the way back in July 2021. We're in June 2022, and I still haven't read it. Well, I was waiting for the improved edition to come out, like the edited, rewritten one that was traditionally published by Tor. And that came out in March, and I did buy it in March, but I didn't read it, and I still haven't, because I suck as a human being. I know it's more unlabeled than some other books that literally have the word bisexual or pansexual on the page, but I still don't care, because sometimes you don't need to label your sexuality, you just have to be your sexuality. And very excited, I can't wait. I know it's amazing, or at least that's what I've been told. So, yay. And next we have, oh, I forgot to bring a book. Be right back. This book is Gingerbread by Helen Oyemi, another Black woman author. We love to see it. So, I learned about this book from Drinking by My Shelf, which is one of my favorite booktube channels in the world. And this book, I'm not sure if they label their sexuality here either, but I don't care. It's a very weird book. Emma from Drinking by My Shelf said she read it twice to understand it, which I was like, I would love to do that. And also this author does not have only BIREP here, but also in her other books. So if I like this one, I'll check all of them out, because this is amazing. And yeah, it's a short one, but there's still BIREP in it. And 3 classics that I have here are first The Color Purple by Alice Walker. Again, I didn't know this was BIREP. I knew it was queer rep, but not BIREP, which is great to see. Second is The Awakening by Kate Chopin. This is a very old classic, and I don't know much, honestly, about this book. Just that there's a woman and she has an awakening, but I don't know what kind of awakening. Maybe a bi-awakening. And the third book is Orlando by Virginia Woolf. And again, I think not just bi-rep, but also some gender identity expression rep situation. I haven't read it. I don't know. Future. And that, my friends, concludes my video on bi books. If you know any bi books that I did not mention in this video, please comment them down below, or let me know in some other way, because I would love to check them out. And I might make other queer related videos in the future. I would love to do a sapphic books one, because there were some books that are with lesbian rep or just unlabeled rep that I wasn't sure it was bi or not, that I would love to talk to you guys about, because they're great. But for now, I really wanted to focus on the bi and pan books, because as somebody who is pan, I would love to, talk about them more and put them in the spotlight more. So, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!